companies that do it. It's huge, and I'm just saying that.
Wait, hold it. Are these going to be no-bid contracts? You know they're going to be no-bid contracts. You know it's not going to be open to bidding. You know it's going to be closed, and you know that the cost overruns are going to be astronomical. You know all of that.
Of course, some of it will, but we do need to fix our infrastructure. It's crumbling.
Yeah, well, let me give you an example. I live in San Francisco, and a corrupt company rebuilt the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, and the cost overrun was something like $1 billion because it was time and material. That's how the government gives out contracts, and that's why we have thievery. Instead of giving a fixed price to fix the bridge, they let them run up any bill that they want. It's like building that gas station in Afghanistan. So why should we trust the government won't do the same with the highway bill?
Again, we haven't had a highway bill. They will.
But you're repeating yourself. We all agree the highways are broken. The bridges are falling apart. We'd like to have better highways, at least up to a second world standard. They're better in Malaysia than they are in the United States. So how can we, American taxpayers, be sure we're not going to be robbed with no-bid contracts?
I don't think there's any for sure on whether it's Afghanistan building a gas station, or either military, or the airports, or the waterway systems. I mean, our government is corrupt. That's a topic that you talk about all the time. I love your show. I think I'm more conservative than you are. But I bid to Caltrans. I'm a California company. I've been doing it for 4 years. We do not get any open bids. It's super competitive. It's extremely competitive.
Oh, wait. Don't your contracts have an open-ended cost overrun provision? As in if you're in California with Caltrans bids, why don't you tell us about the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge project? Name the company. It's an East Coast company that got the bid. How much money did they make on it, and how much more did it cost when they bid? And while you're at it, let's talk about the San Francisco Bay Bridge to Oakland. What about that bridge falling apart with screws breaking? How come no one's gone to jail on that one?
Look at San Francisco, the retrofit of the Golden Gate, how it went to a Chinese company. We'll look at the damn bullet train going up to nowhere. It's endless. I'm just saying that don't paint a bad picture about the highway bill on the federal side. Why Ryan's doing it, I'm driving to my office right now. I'm going to look it up, because it was a shock to hear you say that. Well,
right. That's the first thing he announced was the highway bill. That's because he is as corrupt, if not more corrupt, than Boehner. My friend, I'm glad you're in the road construction business. I just had a roadway repaved because there's only 2 paving companies, and it cost me $33,000 just to pave a little roadway somewhere in the county in which I live, and the neighbors won't contribute 10 cents because they're all such good liberals and care so much about the community. Thank you. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUICOIN. You want to hear how your police in the United States of America you think are on your side, right? You think if there's an insurrection, they're going to back you? They'll shoot you dead in the street like a dog. Did you hear what just happened in Idaho? Now, here's local guys, all white guys. A car hits a bull that ran out on a highway. An armed rancher shows up to protect the bull. It's a prized bull. The deputies want to shoot the animal dead. The man won't back down because he's a tough guy and an ex-athlete. And they all shoot at each other. The rancher is dead. The bull is dead. The wife hears about it and she gets a heart attack. So don't assume that if there's an insurrection in America, your brave deputies are going to support you against the corrupt, evil government. They'll shoot you dead in the street like a rabid animal. Never forget that. They will shoot you dead in the street like a rabid animal. They're not on your side.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Germany and other European nations are on the brink of a civil war because of the insanity of the illegitimate, evil union, the European Union, The same mentality is dictating what goes on in this country. Last hour on the Savage Nation, we talked about geocentrism and heliocentrism during the Middle Ages. Now we are stuck with something even worse than geocentrism, which is Obamacentrism, where the liberals, so-called, in America and the world think the world, in fact, the entire universe revolves around a man from Honolulu or Kenya or Indonesia. Let's say Honolulu. It doesn't matter where he was born. But we live in a nation, a republic, that's not supposed to revolve around a single man. We're supposed to have a separation of powers, a system of checks and balances to prevent a dictatorship from emerging. But we have a soft dictatorship that has emerged in the United States of America, which is why I asked somewhat rhetorically in the last hour, should Angela Merkel and other EU gangsters be tried for crimes against their nations in a new People's Nuremberg trial? And then I jump cut to the United States, and should we have an Omaha trial here in America for American criminal gangsters in the political machine? Why do you assume that if a person has the word congressman or senator in front of their name that they cannot be a criminal gangster? Why do you make the assumption that they're not dirty? Now, you say, well, I don't assume that. I assume some of them are dirty. Then why are none of them ever tried? Why are they never tried, and why are they never found guilty? Why do they never give up a dime? Why do they never go to jail? And I'm talking about now. I'm not talking about then. Remember the situation of the Democrat Rostakovsky, who just pled guilty after, 10 years? And paid a small fine. Then there was the case of the Republican found guilty. Here and there, over the years, there have been politicians tried and found guilty of corruption, greed and graft, corruption. But not now. Why is there no trials right now for any corrupt politicians? Because the system is corrupt now. Endemically, it is corrupted. We have an attorney general who herself was appointed by Al Sharpton, who handpicked her from the New York courts, made her the attorney general, and she comes up with crackpot ideas that there's no such thing now as a juvenile delinquent. Did you hear that one? In the last hour, that to me symbolizes corruption of the language itself. I have to get the words because I can't even remember them. Justice implied or something? Here. Juvenile delinquents are now called justice-involved youth. Let us see. Attorney General Loretta Lynch Sharpton said in a news release yesterday, the Department of Injustice is committed to giving justice-involved youth the tools they need to become productive members of society. Justice-involved youth. So that means any criminal now is a justice-involved individual. 855-407-282. You say, well, what are the solutions? And many people are frustrated, as I am, angry and frustrated, ready to explode. I can hardly go to dinner with family. They don't want to listen to it. They can't take it. It's 24/7 with me. I can hardly sleep. I can hardly eat. The corruption, the criminal activity is at an all-time high. Now Obama-centrics want to bring in God knows how many Syrian Muslim refugees of military age. It can't be allowed to happen. So, what are my 40 actions to save America, which is the last chapter of Government Zero? I actually have solutions. One, start a nationalist party. Now, I know it's not going to work for 2016, but we need to plan for the future. And as I said to you before, there's a word going out that the liberals of the older generation should be aware of their own children, beware of their own children who are quite conservative. There's a conservative revolt going on in America amongst the millennials. You don't know that. You think all millennials are psychotic red diaper doper babies. They're not. Their mama was a red diaper doper baby. Their so-called father was a red diaper doper baby. The ones who looked like, let's say, what's his name? The gray-haired guy running for a president. I don't remember his name. The crackpot trade unionist from New York's Garment Center. Sanders would be an example of their grandfather. Then they created the mentally ill parents of the millennials. So we need a new party. We have a one-party system right now. It's a charade what we have right now. A shell game with no peas under either shell. As we have seen with Boehner and McConnell, we have an oligarchy running America. Now, we voted conservatives, and they were put at the back of the bus. Conservative has become meaningless. I think a nationalist party would attract disaffected members from both parties and tip the balance of power back to the people. It would take 10 years to create such a party and make it a viable party. And if I were 40 years old, I would create it myself. But I am not 40 years old, so I cannot create it myself. I am the architect of the new America. I am not the engineer. I am not the builder of the new America. I am the architect of the new America. Michael Savage. Second action, close the borders completely for 7 years. No immigration. None. Zero. Nada. Nothing. Not one immigrant comes in for 7 years. We need to assimilate the legal immigrants that are here, just as we did the waves of immigrants at the beginning of the last century. At the end of 7 years, evaluate our capacity for normalizing immigration with nationalist priorities, as I've described. Page 314 of Government Zero. Here are the solutions. Don't claim that I am just a crybaby and have no solutions. Number 3, deport all illegal aliens in American prisons. Make sure you get in American prisons in the sentence. Don't be like CNN and the perverts at MSNBC. The crackpot perverts on CNN and MSNBC will say Savage says deport all illegal aliens, and they'll leave out in American prisons. That would be up to 1/3 of the prison population, which exceeds 2 million prisoners. Won't cost us very much. Throw them out of the country. 4, repeal the Anchor Babies law. Now, there is no Anchor Babies law. It's an amendment to the Constitution. But you can amend the Constitution again and get rid of it. 5, make English the official language of the United States. Now, I was on a liberal show last week. A nice older man, diehard liberal, lives in L.A., lives in a bubble, says to me, oh, you don't believe in global warming? Notice he didn't say, you don't accept the evidence for global warming. He said, oh, you don't believe in global warming? I looked at him like he was nuts. I said, well, do you know the Antarctic ice pack is growing? Do you know we're in a cooling phase? He blinked. He never heard of that. It's a religion to them. As is the false notion that we're a nation of immigrants and we must accept an endless flow of immigrants. Another falsehood. Make English the official language of the United States. So he says to me, well, wait, Michael, you are the son of an immigrant. What are you, afraid of other languages? I said, no, I'm not afraid of them. My grandmother didn't speak a word of English. She didn't understand English. I lived in a household where she spoke only Russian. It's funny, I don't speak Russian, but I understand. Sometimes in my dreams I speak Russian. Would you believe it? It's a crazy thing. I haven't had one of these dreams in years because my grandmother spoke to me in this language when I was a baby and a young kid, an infant, real. I don't know how old, 4 or 5. I can't speak it. It's a tough language. But I sometimes have dreams where I'm conversing in Russian. Nevertheless, that's a side point. I'm not saying don't speak other languages in America. We're a melting pot nation. But I'm saying mandate English for all legal and political transactions. It's the universal language of the world, and yet you have a psycho in the White House that celebrates diversity. And here in San Francisco, the corrupt, evil politicians have ballots in 8 languages. Now you know why we have Boxer in office for over 150 years. Now you know why the senile Nancy Pelosi is still in office after 150 years. Because they have ballots in 8 languages, 10 languages. That's why. Make all ballots in English only. I never heard of it. You can't read or write English, you can't vote. End of story. Who would argue with that? Why should you be allowed to vote if you can't read or write the language of the land? Answer, because the corrupt, evil politicians want to make sure that the idiots who can't read or write vote for them. I want to show you how bad the city has gotten. Yesterday, I walked around this beautiful city that I love so much in San Francisco, and I love this city. I'm part of the matrix of this city. This city is as much mine as it is the vermin who think that they run it and own it. I love San Francisco. So it was dusk, and I was walking around, and I wound up down by the Embarcadero, by the ferry terminal. I love going in there and buying a bread from Acme Bread. I won't tell you that story. That's a side note. And as I'm walking back through the park, the sun was just falling, and there was a turd on the sidewalk. Now, I'm not going to get graphic. Now, being an ex-Boy Scout, I learned how to read animal tracks when I was a Cub Scout. I can tell animal tracks, and you also tell what animal was there by the droppings. Am I right? Ask anyone who hunts anything. I looked down and I said, wait a minute, there are no bears in San Francisco. I never saw anything this size. I said, there are no bears in the city. And I realized it's a human being that crapped on the sidewalk. Now, in my day and age, if a man was seen defecating on the sidewalk, a cop would have broken his head open with a nightstick. A big cop would have come and gave him a crack on the head and broke his head open and dragged him out of there and thrown him in jail, and that would have been the end of it. But no, not here in San Francisco. We ought to ask what Loretta Lynch thinks about defecating